Hey, Mary. Hey, Eileen.
Good
Um,
morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Alzheimer's Awareness Month, right? Couldn't be more pertinent than it is to our industry and our organization, A Right Place for Seniors. And we're assuming there are some people that are joining us today that aren't familiar with us. So one of the things I thought I'd start with today in our little roundtable conversation is talking a bit about how we got into this. Before I do that, Mary, you're at my screen, wave. Mary is my business partner, and Eileen is our associate who works in the North County for A Right Place for Seniors in San Diego. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and the reason I got involved in A Right Place for Seniors because my mother had Alzheimer's, and I, over a 16-year period, monitored her care remotely, lived with her for a minute, and then had her live with me for a few years. And then from there, she actually did go into placement into a small assisted living and then into a board and care. But before all that happened, I had a bad placement experience. And so that's why I got involved with placement. Mary approached me about starting this business, and it was really important to me that I get involved in an organization that made sure this was done right. So that's how I landed here. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with A Right Place for Seniors or placement agencies in general, that is exactly what we are. We're a placement agency for seniors and or seniors' families to look to us for expertise in helping place their family member into an assisted living or a board and care situation or independent living on some occasion. But typically it's assisted living and board and care. And so there are in San Diego County about 400 board and cares and 250 assisted living. So as you can imagine, it would be almost impossible for somebody to go out and touch all of those locations to get an appropriate fit for their parent. Or for the individual senior who's in their 80s, they don't have the stamina to do something like that. So people look to us, and we have relationships with many of these locations. If we don't have a relationship with them and we think it's a good fit, we'll establish a relationship, do the tour, and make sure that we find the right fit for your family. We're a free service, doesn't cost families anything to use us. We love that part of it. It's one of my favorites. And how we get paid, we always like people to know up front, is from the referral fee. It's like a thank you fee from the location where we end up putting the senior. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about dementia and how about 80% of our clients probably are dementia. That doesn't keep people from who don't have dementia using us. Believe me, we get a lot of that. But oftentimes, dementia can be a little trickier placement because it's not a one-size-fits-all for people that have dementia. And so that's why it's important to go through a placement agency where we do our upfront work, do all the research, all of the locating, the touring, pre-touring before we even tour our families. And then from there, we try to narrow it down to a few locations, 3, maybe 4. And then we keep it really tight so that the family only has to decide between 3 or 4 locations that we find are an appropriate fit. So from there, I wanted to introduce Mary. Again, Mary Golden is my business partner. And ask Mary, some of the situations as we're talking about dementia, what are some of the things that you found in our placement that are really important for people to know?
Yeah, well, first I just wanted to say I spoke with a woman yesterday who called who saw 45 places the last time she placed her father, and I've never heard of somebody going to 45 places before, but she was very proud of the fact that she did that. On the other hand, she ended up with a placement that wasn't very good ultimately. So I can't stress enough how we can help to really hone in on the appropriate kind of placement. Specifically, dementia comes in just a lot of different shapes and sizes. Like Monica mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all type of placement. Dementia could be something that is defined as just a mild cognitive impairment that frequently is associated with aging. But it could also be something like a Alzheimer's disease, Lewy bodies dementia, or Parkinson's-related dementia, which comes with kinds of can come with all kinds of difficulties, and especially when there's behaviors that are not socially appropriate type behaviors that come along with those changes in the brain, it can make the resulting placement really difficult and expensive. There's only a few facilities that'll really take people that have severe disabilities with regards to their behavior, and so we know those things, and we can really help with that. But the first thing to really do when you're trying to determine what it is you need for your loved one, research that has to go in. You have to get a clear understanding of what that diagnosis is. It's important to see the right professionals to do that. Medication management becomes a very important aspect of treating this disease. They really don't know how else to manage it except through medications and behavioral techniques in the facility. So getting the kind of support you need as a family to understand what you're up against. Sometimes these kinds of this kind of a process, a cognitive process, takes place over a long period of time with very slow onset. Sometimes it's very rapid, and it just sidelines the family, and it keeps changing, and it gets more and more difficult to manage over time. So, having as much information as you can, and we can help you with the resources too. Placement isn't always the best option right off the bat. It might be ultimately, but it may not be in the beginning. So we can help steer you in the right direction, getting the resources and support you need as a family, as a spouse, as a daughter or son, or whoever it is that's caretaking. Home care can be helpful. It's also quite expensive, so that you need to know those kinds of things too. When we start working with a client, the first thing we do is now it's a little different right now because of COVID, so we might do a Zoom a meeting with you and your family. But typically we do an assessment where we go out and we meet your parent or your loved one, and we determine what it is that, we see it firsthand what it is we're dealing with. And we also meet with you and kind of go through parameters that allow us to determine what the needs are. The other thing that's really important is budget. Financial issues or financial constraints are a main part of this thing. Everything is, costs money. So, taking things one step at a time on your journey, you can't really rush out there and make the decision long term. Sometimes these things go on for years and years, and your first placement may not be your last, and that needs to be understood as well. So, it's important to know your options. Get the support you need, and understand that this is a journey that we can help you on along the way.
Yeah, that's important stuff. Eileen, what has been your experience when you're doing your placements up there? I know you cover the North County pretty extensively. Run into lots of different families with lots of different situations. What do you feel are important things for people to know when you're looking to place somebody with dementia or dealing with it at home?
Well, one of the things that I had a run on this spring was families that haven't had conversations, and what are your wishes as you get older? Haven't shared it with their spouse or their children or their loved ones. It's like, what's going on at that moment when you're in crisis is not the time to have those conversations. And then behind that is the paperwork. So, if Mary's talking about having the proper diagnosis, because then along with that is all the paperwork that needs to happen. And one of the things with the paperwork is the power of attorney for healthcare, and durable power of attorney, and then also your finances and your will and your trust. And so often I run into my parents have never shared their finances. Their parents keep that all close in for whatever family reasons. But then how do you sort this? I just recently had a very good friend of mine whose husband's going into heart surgery. At 36 hours beforehand, she's calling me in a panic because they've never done any paperwork. And I've talked to her about this for years. And he's in his 80s, and here they are. So this is with dementia or anything, but what's one of the first questions we ask too, have you had this done? We don't help with that. But again, we give resources and help you make sure that you've got all the proper things in order. And so, that's really critical, because the problem is when you don't share your wishes and your family doesn't know what you want, then they're left with, the doctor's going to make the decision. I think my mom wants this. There's so much angst. There's so much cost that goes into if you have to do conservatorship. If the dementia is far enough along where they're not able to make these decisions for themselves and there's no paperwork, they're stuck. So there's a lot of pain that goes into this. Financial pain, emotional pain, fighting between family members about what they think they should do, not do, because they don't know the wishes of their loved one. And those consequences just pay such high prices. So, I tell everybody, get the paperwork done as soon as possible. When we're working with the kids, so they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, for helping their parents, I'm like, do you have yours done? It's like, why don't you all sit down and have this conversation, and you should be having it with your children too. None of us knows, car accident, this or that, what could happen. We should all get that paperwork done. It's so easy to put off. And, just even watching my dear friend go through this angst in this last week with not having, she said, I'll never let this happen again. And, it's so hard to not have those conversations and those decisions made.
Lots of unintended consequences as you move into illness, whether it be dementia or just general aging and decline, that people aren't doing properly prepared. One thing that I wanted to mention that I think is really important, and it's a little bit hard to talk about, and that is, as you're looking for placement, especially for somebody that has dementia, people have this tendency to, obviously we're going to look for the right location. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We'll dwindle it down to a few choices that we think are good. But one of the first things we do is for cost, what's your budget, and the next thing is what location do you want? And oftentimes people are picking something that's close to their home because they think they're going to go visit their loved one all the time. Now, if it's a spouse or a mother or father, and they know they're going to see them every day or 5 days a week, I think, proximity to your home is super important, because I know it was for me when I placed my mother. She was 5 minutes from our office, Mary, not even 5 minutes from our office, and probably 10 minutes from my house. And I saw her, 5-6 days a week. But for those who, are going to make a commitment to do that and they don't, and then they sometimes pick a place that's close to their home and it's really not the best fit. And the main reason they picked it was proximity, closest to them, easiest for them, but it may not have been the best fit for their parent of the three that we gave them. And that's happened to us a few times. We say, we think this place is a better fit. I had one out in East County that was a perfect fit for the mother. They left her in assisted living. Remember that one, Mary? Yeah. Assisted living for 4 months until an opening came up to a board and care home that was just blocks from them. And the mother went into decline for those 4 months she was in the assisted living because they didn't want to drive that far to visit her. And so I think it's really important for people to realize that every facility, especially for dementia, isn't a fit for every person. We're not doctors, we're not psychologists, we're not experts, but you should get into talking to people about, what do you think would be a good fit for my mom? If it's a really busy place and but it's close to you and you think it'd be great for her and it turns out not to be, then the unintended consequence of that is you have to move her. Because sometimes they can have behaviors, sometimes they'll act out, sometimes they'll get aggressive to staff or others at the location because you didn't pick the right place for them. You picked the most convenient place for you to put them. So I think it's really important for people to pick a facility that's a best fit. And even if it's a little farther, you have to drive 10 more minutes. I ended up having to move my mom from a small assisted living when she was starting to go into a decline, because it had some stairs and some challenges, to a ranch-style home down in the Chula Vista area, which was a much better fit for my mother as she got, along in her dementia. And it had nothing to do with care and everything to do with the physical layout of the location, because she had numerous falls at the small assisted living. And she did really well at this ranch-style in Chula Vista because she had flat, no steps, no challenges physically that she had to manage. And yes, it was a little further drive for me. I probably ended up going to see her 4 or 5 days a week instead of 5 or 6 days a week, but that's okay. She got really good care and that was a better fit for her. So I always want to caution people not to pick something just because you think it's pretty or it's convenient for you. Really look at, with us, at what we recommend for their particular situation would maybe be a better fit.
You know, there's ways to look at this that aren't it's not static. It's something that you can look at over time. Because like I was saying in the beginning, it's a journey, you know.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It is a good point.
That's a great conversation that, you know, I think we have too with helping people. And again, placement agencies will help you look at all of that. You know, what's the budget? How long do we need to make that budget last? You know, is there a point when you need to look at other kinds of financial support or services? Or, you know, there's a lot to look at that we walk people through.
Yeah. And I know we wanted to kind of keep our time short on this one. Maybe our next topic can be sharing with people the difference between assisted living and board and care. And we can talk about, you know, this versus that, not necessarily one better than the other in terms of overall care, but for your particular parent or your senior, one might be a better fit than the other. And there's a lot to it. So maybe we can do that next time.
Great.
Right. You guys have any closing remarks? I'm finished with mine.
No, I think, you know, just really, you know, letting people know that we're here to help you. We cover San Diego County, and we walk side by side with you through this. You know, some agencies will hand you a list, like Mary was saying, somebody saw 45 homes on their own. I can't even imagine. And we're familiar with all of these, and we know the right questions to ask and the things to ask about, and we can help you negotiate things and look for hidden costs. And when people find us after they've worked with us, they're like, how did I ever do this without you? And that's the point. And again, like Monica said at the beginning, no charge to you. We work with those communities.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, everyone. And I think it was a fruitful discussion. I hope it was helpful to our viewers.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, see you guys next time.
All right, bye-bye.